talking about Sass today. Hopefully. Okay, so what is Sass? Sass stands for Syntactically Awesome Style Sheets. It was developed because CSS is very repetitive and hard to scale for large websites. So Sass is a great solution to dry out your code. And in the following slides, I'm going to provide examples for using variables, colors, tools for colors, and mixins that will demonstrate this dry philosophy. Okay, so Sass is what is known as a preprocessing language. It is processed first into CSS before the browser can render it. So you have to do that translation first before rendering it to the browser. So preprocessors, they expand the functionality of CSS, and they make CSS more maintainable and themable, and they can be easily compiled and be used in any browser. So other preprocessors are like Less, you guys have probably heard of, but Sass is definitely probably the most popular one. So Sass has two syntaxes. This is something that I definitely didn't understand prior to this, hence the GIF. So the first one is Sass. That was the original one. It's the older syntax. It uses indentation rather than brackets and new lines rather than semicolons. So this is an example of that. It wasn't broadly accepted because it was so far off like the traditional CSS style. So the newer syntax, which you're probably more familiar with, is SCSS, and it stands for Sassy CSS. It's an extension of the CSS syntax, so it's a little more easier to adopt. And yeah, that's an example of it right there. So it has like the semicolons and the brackets and everything you're used to. So getting started, I wanted to try to use SCSS in my film stack project and see how easy it was to transform my CSS into SCSS. So I just followed the docs on the Sass website. So I renamed all my CSS files to SCSS. I moved all those files into one folder, and then I ran a watch command in the terminal, which saves those pre-processed SCSS files as SCSS or CSS in a new folder. So this is the command that I run in my terminal. So that's my folder, the SCSS, and then it saves in Style Sheets. And then you get this on your terminal because it's watching for changes. And it's pretty easy. I was surprised how easy it was. Of course, I'm not using like gulp or anything like that, but if you just wanted to like try it out, that would be it. Okay, so one of the first cool things about Sass is variables. Like other programming language, Sass allows the use of variables. You can store information throughout your style sheet. So Sass uses the $sign to define a variable. So you can do like a font, a primary color, really anything you want, and then use it throughout your code. Let's see. Okay. So it's great for defining, controlling information that you want to reuse and for creating themes. Themes create a clear distinction between various parts of a website, and it gives a specific look and feel to your site, especially if you have different pages. It can all be really cohesive. It's good for brand management. Modifying color is a really cool thing you can do in Sass. There's one way of doing it is through color operations, and you can perform mathematical operations on your color values, and it's done piecewise. So what that means is there's like the red, green, and blue in the hex values, and you just add like the first two numbers together. So like the 01, the 02, it's kind of hard to see from there, but anyways, they're added together and it's compiled to that one color. Color functions is the easier and not so like mathy way to go about it. And it's easier for choosing and manipulating your colors. And there's various types of functions available. These are some of the ones, like RGB, HSL, which is hue, saturation, lightness, which is a common one, opacity, and more. So lighten and darken, here's an example. So you just throw darken in front of your color and the percentage at which you want to darken it. Also kind of the same thing for lighten. And then this is what it would look like in CSS. It would be the new hex code that you darkened and then lightened. Mixins, this is a really great thing too. They're like variables, but for larger chunks of code. So if you want to reuse blocks of information throughout your style sheet, you can make groups of CSS declarations. And you start out by declaring it by using @mixin and giving it a name. And then when you want to use that mixin in your code, you just say @include and the name, and you can start using it. So here's an example of a mixin. So named as center, give it all those properties. Then I can use it in a container and an image cover, and it's all very like cohesive and the same. It's you can predict what's going to happen because CSS can be like all over the place with image sizing. And you can also include your other styles there. So you can include the mixin and then throw other stuff in. But let's see. And mixins can also take arguments. So if you want to provide an argument, it's optional. You just have to use a default value. So if you did like, you wanted to make padding optional, you would just go colon like 0 or something. And these were my resources, and that's it.